Have you ever been in a situation where you had an incredibly intense, very intense emotional reaction to somebody or something that happened to you? And it could even be just from someone's mere presence. Or have you ever just gone off just like bam, 0 to 10, went off on someone that later you're like, maybe that was a little bit of an intense reaction? Well, those, my friend, are what we here called being triggered moments, right? And I feel like being triggered or saying I'm triggered is kind of overused, or we just hear all over the place now. But what I was thinking about is how being triggered, if you think about a gun and you think about a trigger on a gun and something happens and the response is to pull back. So a little motion towards us, ourselves, and that little motion causes something huge to go out, right? Something with a lot of force and momentum goes out towards and away from you. So I was thinking appropriate definition, but I was just thinking about even as a gun is like a weapon, like we can hurt others with our words when we're triggered, right? So if any of this sounds intriguing to you, or you are someone who you have found yourself going from 0 to 10, totally pissed, like bam, I've never done that, then I want you to stick around. Can you possibly think of it as something that you could benefit from when you get triggered? It might sound bizarre, but if you stick around, I think that you might feel you've experienced a big shift in your thinking, and you could be experiencing some big healing moments too. So I want you to stay tuned. And if you are someone that I am Erica, and let's rewind. I'm Erica, and I'm your host of Powered by Joy podcast. And we're here talking about finding more joy in our lives and feeling more alive. So if you're someone who feels stuck, frustrated, bored, just really can't figure out how to make moves in your lives to where you want your life to be, and you want to feel more joy, more alive, more adventure, happiness, abundance, we're on a quest to seek that here. And I hope that you join us if that's something you want to do, and you want to do it without sacrificing your commitment to your family and your friends. Okay, so welcome. Okay, so when we're thinking about being triggered, I want you to think about times when that has happened. And if you were in that moment and you were to pull, let's say that those emotions were like a ball of yarn, that you were to pause and pull on that string and follow it to see where it leads, that caused those really intense emotions to come out of you, I would bet that the majority, I'm not going to give any percentages because I don't know any studies to tell, but I would guess that a very large percentage of the reason why you are having an intense triggered moment is tied to a childhood wound, unhealed inner child work, unhealed wounds as an adult going through life, just any time that we've experienced something really painful and we haven't taken the time to heal that pain and that wound, and haven't gone inside and listened to our inner child who's like screaming at us to stand up for ourselves and set some boundaries, some of that kind of stuff. So usually it's tied to that. And I know that there are other circumstances where there is righteous anger, and there is a time for righteous anger. Maybe someone does something to your kid, mama bear comes out, all bets are off, right? So there are times though when we will have these intense responses. So I'm going to give you an example just to make things a little easier. So when I was 5 or 6, I'm not sure which, but it was the first time I was riding the school bus home alone, and I was really nervous and scared. I didn't know anybody, and I wasn't sure if I was going to remember to get off at the right stop. And so I was really paying attention, and the bus was full of kids. And I remember I went to get off the bus and I was so nervous, and I slipped and I fell down the steps, and the driver wasn't paying attention and shut the door on me while I was like half out of the bus. And I vividly remember that a whole bunch of the kids were looking out and laughed at me. And that was just like this big trauma moment for me, right? And I can literally think about how it set a course for me that whenever I am doing something new, going somewhere new or learning something new or trying to do something new that I'm unsure of, I don't like to do it where there are going to be any witnesses to me having a moment where I screw up or something goes wrong or I trip and fall. Don't like any audience. So to this day, like I either want someone with me that I know knows what the fuck they're doing, or I prefer to learn a new skill or try something for the first time with no witnesses. So that would be like riding a motorcycle, practicing by myself so no one sees me stalling the bike or you name it. There's tons of times where I've been learning something new and just didn't really want an audience. And so I can see how pulling that thread, like, of getting triggered in moments where it really is painful for me to learn something new. I feel hypersensitive to anybody critiquing me or making comments or making a joke when I'm in the middle of trying to learn something new. Then I'm really quick to like, bam, fire back at them like, fuck you later, right? So a second example that I would like to give is tied to different emotions, and that would be like jealousy and envy. So I remember being at the racetrack where we take our motorcycles and cars, and there was a gal that I met there, and I saw her on social media, and I saw her in person. And she was traveling, riding at all sorts of different tracks. She was really fast and she was beautiful and just living this really, what appeared to me to be exciting life. And I remember trying to find something to judge and just been like, and being uncomfortable around her and shy and just like, I just didn't receive being around her as an opportunity. I felt threatened by her. So my thought process was to judge her and just be jealous of her and be like, oh, she's so perfect, or she's going to do all that stuff, or maybe it all just, all is coming together because someone did it for her, whatever. But in the middle of that, I remembered something. I remembered hearing that when you feel jealousy or envy when you're observing somebody else, I think I mentioned this in another episode, that it's an opportunity to look at them and see what is going on in their life. What are they doing or experiencing, have, do, be, that you desire to feel and experience or do yourself or be. So you see something in them that you want for yourself. And that's really the truth of why we're feeling jealous or envious. And so I'm just going to pause right there, because that leads me into our steps that we're going to take. So I've got three steps that we're going to use, and you're going to have the option to try these. I invite you to do it as an experimentation, as play instead of homework. I would invite you to just do it out of curiosity, because we know that I like to call that a superpower. It's a super tool. It's a superpower tool. Curiosity can get you a long ways in this life's journey, my friends. So anyways, I'm going to propose the first step. And the first step is to observe. So you pause, you observe that thought, that intense emotion, that moment you've been triggered. So learning to, one, observe the trigger has happened. Tuning into your body. Is my body tense? Do I feel anxiety, jealousy, anger, fear? Like, what's the really intense emotions? How is my body? How's my breathing? How does my stomach feel? Our body tells us everything if we're actually listening, right? It tries. And so step one, we're observing. I'm feeling a lot of jealousy or anger. And then step two, we're going to use curiosity and we're going to ask questions. So step two is curiosity and using it to ask the right questions, good questions. I have a whole episode about asking good questions too. Check that one out. I'll put it in the show notes, but the quality of our questions matter. But that would be a point where you're like, ooh, okay, what was that? And now you're going to get curious and ask, why did I have that intense reaction? Why did that trigger me? What emotions am I feeling? Okay, I observed that I'm feeling anger. Okay, now I'm going in to inquire within. I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to get curious. I'm not doing it from judgment. I'm doing it from curiosity. Okay, don't bring that judgment in. That's like the garbage at the front door. We're just ditching that today. Okay, so we're coming in curiosity and we're like, oh, why did I feel that intensely? Oh, is there a memory or something that I can remember that I felt that intensity about before? Or what does this situation remind me of? Or the way the person talked to me in this moment, what did that remind me of? What happened before that maybe when I was a kid, someone used to talk to me that way all the time and just like, I'm ready. So let's talk about, we've got fight, flight, freeze. I think there's a fourth one now. I can't remember it, but I'd say 99% of the time, jump to fight, like a lot of us do, and it feels safe to come from right? So that person's made me angry. Okay, like what about that situation reminds me of that need to fight and protect myself? My inner child is ready to fight because she doesn't feel safe because a boundary got crossed, right? So let's put it in real context, okay? So let's jump back to the first example of me falling in the bus and I don't like to learn things in front of people, okay? Let's pretend, this has just never happened, of course, right? But let's just pretend I'm learning to work on something new on my motorcycle. And I'm working on it and I think I'm doing a good job, but I'm struggling because that happens a lot. And Mitch is out there with me, my hubby, and he maybe says, oh, you're doing that wrong. You want to turn that to the right. And I'm probably going to say something like, I know that. Do you think I'm stupid or something? And that's my inner child, my wound. I'm getting triggered from that, like feeling stupid, like I was learning something and I messed up and somebody's critiquing me or making fun of me. And so now I have the option. Okay, I observe. Step one, I observe. Okay. Step two, I'm getting curious and I'm asking, why am I getting so defensive when he points out that I turned the wrench the wrong way? Oh, okay. I don't like how it makes me feel like he's making fun of me while I'm trying to do something new and I messed up and I don't like him pointing it out. Okay. That's probably not where he's coming from, right? So step three is the shift. I love shifting our thought process and our emotions around something and our perspective. So this is an opportunity to change and shift and go, okay, yep, I've observed the emotion. I've observed where it is, what the root cause is, kind of followed that yarn back and pulled the string and go, oh, there's a wound I didn't heal. And now I'm going to say something and go, oh, well, maybe that crossed a boundary, or maybe I just, little Erica inside's like, I need you to speak up. I don't like how he said it or something. So then the shift would be, okay, what if he was coming from a place of trying to be helpful and saying something like, hey, I would love it if when you see me doing something wrong, if you asked me, like, would you like my guidance or input right now? And then that puts me in a place where I'm like, yeah, is there something I'm frustrated. Can you help me? Instead of you saying you're doing it wrong. When you say you're doing it wrong, it just like spikes my emotions. So like, sometimes I want to try and figure it out myself. But if you ask if I'm ready for help or something like that, I would probably receive your guidance better. Now, that doesn't mean he did anything wrong, but maybe it's just us needing to ask for that. And if you have a partner who's loving and respectful, then hopefully they're going to respond and be like, oh, yeah, okay. And then I have some bonus steps for you, and they can be hard to do, especially at first, okay? So step one was observe. Step two is curiosity. Step three, shift, okay? And then number one bonus is, can you now make yourself think a positive thought towards that person in this situation? So in this example, it would be like, I'm really glad that he's willing to come out here and be with me while I'm trying to learn. Or I'm really glad that he knows a lot about motorcycles, so I can ask him for help. Okay? And then extra credit bonus. Okay, that would be, can you pay that person a compliment? Find something positive to say to them. I found that these last two bonus steps actually really expedited my healing and my ability to step away from being triggered and stepping into more abundance in my life in a lot of different areas. So that would look like this. I would say, I just want to tell you I appreciate that you know so much about motorcycles so that you can help me. And it might even feel a little, because you maybe have a little bit of tension in your body still because your trigger emotions are still flowing through, but there's something neutralizing about choosing to express gratitude, because we can't feel that same part of our body and anatomy feels the gratitude and anxiety or other emotions. So when you're in gratitude, you're not feeling the other emotions. You can't be in those emotions the same. So using those as your secret weapon to make more strides. I have found this to be very healing and has helped me to move out of those emotions. So let me get back to the lady with the motorcycles and the travel adventure. Okay, so we're going to run through the steps with her. And so step one, I observed that I'm feeling jealous and I have envy over her adventure, her motorcycle riding, just like the travel she's getting to do, that I really, I'm jealous of that. Okay. All right. Now I'm in step two, curiosity. What about her is triggering me to feel jealous and envy and judgy? Okay. All right. She gets to travel and looks like she has a lot of freedom to have adventures in her life. And I want that. I don't have that. I feel like I don't have that. And then, that's where we're shifting our thinking. Like, okay, so I see that I want that travel and adventure in my life. Now, what would I do tomorrow to get, I see that now. Okay, so the shift would be, what can I do that gets me one step closer to having that in my life? Because just because she has in her life doesn't mean I can have in mine. So obviously I desire that. So instead of putting that misery on her and judging her and being a bitch towards her, I'm like, okay, she's got something going on. I want that. I'm going to emulate it. And I'm going to take a step and I'm going to schedule a weekend away with my hubby or whatever it is. But then I've committed to a shift, and I've made that third step, the shift of my thinking. And I've even put in a step of what I'm going to do to get myself closer to what I envy in that person, right? And then you start to feel better about yourself, and you're acknowledging a desire, your inner child screaming for some adventure and play. And now you've listened because you observed, went inside, listened. Oh, okay. I do wish for more adventure and travel. And so now we've had an opportunity to shift our thinking away from being envious and judging them and negative emotions. And now we're thinking about, what are my possibilities? So what does the bonus step look like? It would be, wow, it's really inspiring that she is living a life that includes so many of the things I'd love to do. Extra credit bonus, right? Be level 2 is going up to her and saying, I just want to say it really inspires me that you live out a way where you travel and you live out your passions. Is like, I love watching it on, social media or whatever. I just think it's super cool. And when we do that, it's almost like a two-pronged approach. We're acknowledging our inner child, we're acknowledging the wound, we're listening to our emotions, we're feeling the feels, we're processing it in the earlier steps. And so that is allowing for healing to begin when we have trauma and wounds. And then we have the other approach where we've got gratitude and we're shifting our thought to something positive, where we state something positive about them. I found that really shortened up the time where I started to move away from having those jealous or envy thoughts or the triggers being so intense and fast. And I think the jealousy envy one was almost like the earliest, quickest one for me to realize that lesson and go, oh my gosh, the more I acknowledge and get excited for other people's abundance and happiness and joy, it seemed to come even more into my life quicker and in more like massive quantities. So it's like, oh, I like this. Like, yeah, it's almost like a magnet, because Now I'm reflecting that out. I'm triggered, I'm pulling the trigger, and I'm shooting joy at you. I'm shooting gratitude and cool compliments, positive inspiration, instead of anger and jealousy and things like that. I do think that when we're talking about other emotions like fear or anger, like my first example, sometimes we have to go in and seek a coach. We need to seek counseling. Like, I'm certainly not a professional doctor of any sort. And so, of course, there are big T traumas and a lot of trauma that some people need extra help moving through. And so I, of course, would always say seek professional guidance if you feel like those triggers are really intense, they're all the time, and you're just having a hard time getting a handle on it, and some of these steps just don't feel even doable. Seek somebody's guidance and help. And I would say professional help, but reaching out is your first step of courage, right? And if you're somebody who's like, yeah, I'm working with this, but I still feel like I'm kind of stuck on it, and maybe I need a little bit of practice with it, I would love to offer that I do have one-on-one coaching where I can help you with getting more insight directly one-on-one if you do need more help with feeling triggered a lot. And I love helping shift your perspective and going through those steps with you. And so, of course, you can always reach out if you want more guidance on that. And one of the things I found is by taking these steps, it acted as kind of a pressure relief valve. And what was amazing was the less I got triggered because I was going in, feeling, reacting differently, I started to notice it even before, like as my body started to shift how it felt and how I was sitting, my emotions, everything. Like, I could feel the triggeredness coming and go, oh, and there are still tons of times, I'm preaching to myself here today. There are tons of times that I still get to that 10 out of 10 too quick. And then after, I'm like, ugh. But guess what? If you do that and you're in a relationship with someone and you do that and you have access to them, could you be so bold as to go back to them and be like, dude, I came out hot out of the gate. This is why. I kind of did some work and figured out why I had that intense reaction. And is this an opportunity to talk to that person and be like, hey, when you talk to me like that, it brings back some stuff that I'm going to work on, but I need you to know that I'm not okay when you come at me yelling after a hard day of work. Like, you can come in and be like, babe, I want to be left alone. I need space. I had a shit day at work. Please give me a half hour so I can compose myself. That's fine, but I need you to not come in the door and then just start dumping your day on me. That's just setting a boundary. And sometimes that's actually part of what's needed. And so our intense emotions need to be embraced. They are not the dark side of us. They are not our enemy. Our emotions, negative, intense, hard, sad, grief, anger, anxiety, worry, any of those, there's others I'm not thinking of. They are our friend. They are teaching us something. They are telling us something. Something is off. We either need to set a boundary, we need to heal something. And so we need to go into that work. But what I wanted to do is encourage you to try these steps, even in a more light way, just to start peeling that onion, because the layers start to unfold, and then we can go into more of the healing, that inner child. And I do have a meditation that I'd love to offer up. I'll put it in the show notes about our inner child and healing our inner child. That can be really helpful too. And it's a process. But on the other side, when when you start making this progress and you start healing, you get triggered less often. And that's the gift of doing the work. That's the payoff, is that there's so much less energy spent because you're feeling all these intense emotions. When you're not feeling that dump of anger because you stay in the grounded place and start to observe, get curious, and shift your thinking, and then you do your bonus gratitude steps. When you do that on a regular basis, the amount of energy you expend feeling all this intense motion, and there's so much energy attached to that, it is life-changing, my friends, life-changing. And it is worth the work, because you will start to find there's space when you heal those things, those wounds, and you use those intense emotions, you listen and tune in and heal them and listen to that inner child who's yelling at you, and you take care of that. All of a sudden there starts to be healing, and it opens up and makes space for the joy, the peace, the abundance, the happiness for others, the gratitude that comes in. And we need to feel all of it, because you know what? If you didn't feel those negative emotions, you wouldn't be alerted to the fact that there's something off, whether it's a boundary needed to be in place, healing needs to happen, whatever it is, or maybe someone needs to be made safe and so you're mama bearing it. But our emotions on the positive and negative side are all necessary and both a gift. And so that's why I wanted to just throw out there at the beginning, like, can you imagine that those hard, challenging emotions are actually our friend and a huge benefit to us and a huge tool to our healing? It's so cool how we're made. So I wanted to share that. So next week, we're actually going to talk about when you trigger others. Have you ever been called too much or made to feel like you're too much, your emotions are too much? We're going to talk about that, and we're going to dive into that next week. So I hope that this was helpful. It hit a nerve and triggered you to think about how you react in a lot of situations and how your emotions work. And did it trigger you that I told you that our negative emotions are our best friend? Maybe that's something to look at. So you might have been taught that we're not supposed to express our negative emotions, and so they're bad. Like, perfect another example, right? So like I said, I hope this was helpful. If you know someone that you feel could benefit from this triggered conversation, please send it, share it. And I would love it if you would be as bold as sharing. What is a time? I would love it if you'd share it. Tell me a time that you were triggered. Something, maybe a funny one. Share a story of when you were triggered. And is there a way you could have rethought it? But just share a time you were triggered that was maybe just really absurd and silly after the fact, okay? I'd love to see that in the comments below. So make sure you subscribe. It helps grow my community. And again, you can follow me on Instagram at Powered by Joy Podcast on Instagram as well. Love to see you there. Or you can also sign up for my newsletter, where we are always giving more tips for bringing in more joy, seeking joy in our lives, and just feeling more alive each day. So thank you for joining me on another episode. I will see you next Tuesday. Bye.